It's okay. Off your mic. It's okay. She off your mic.
Chai! Now wow, people wey suppose talk truth to power don't off mic. And if we talk, now 500,000 they go summer us, call them hate speech. But fear not, Maiyegun don't come. Him go torchlight every corner, nooks and cranny of all these bad people where they spoil our country. So my people make we loud, oh yo yo. Maiyegun don't come, oh yo yo. My people make we shout, oh yo yo. Maiyegun don't come, oh yo yo. Maiyegun don't come, man of the masses, oh yo yo. Maiyegun don't come, oh yo yo. Maiyegun diary Politico, oh yo yo. Maiyegun don't come, oh yo yo. This one not the off in mind, oh yo yo. Maiyegun don't come, oh yo yo. And in the touchlight every corner, oh yo yo. Maiyegun don't come, oh yo yo. Okay, some people be they holla say they want the power. Chai, them be promise us say we go get light and power. Nah. Them hustle sote they can't get the power. But now they know they do anything with the power. Sure. Every day, dollar just they get the higher power over naira. Still them talk say make we off mind. But thank God say Maiyegun don't come. So my people make you loud, oh yo yo. Maiyegun don't come, oh yo yo. My people make we shout, oh yo yo. Maiyegun don't come, oh yo yo. Maiyegun don't come, man of the masses, oh yo yo. Maiyegun don't come, oh yo yo. Maiyegun diary Politico, oh yo yo. Maiyegun don't come, oh yo yo. This one not they off in mind, oh yo yo. Maiyegun don't come, oh yo yo. Person where they do evil, no one make person talk. Them say that Maiyegun, that man too they talk. He too they talk. Say Maiyegun diary, he they hot like pepper. But every day, then they take money in bulk. Woman picking, they the street they hawk. Still them talk say, make we no talk. But thank God say, Maiyegun don't come. So my people make you loud, oh yo yo. Maiyegun don't come, oh yo yo. My people make you shout, oh yo yo. Maiyegun don't come, oh yo yo. Maiyegun don't come, man of the masses, oh yo yo. Maiyegun don't come, oh yo yo. Maiyegun diary Politico, oh yo yo. Maiyegun don't come, oh yo yo. This man not the off in mind, oh yo yo. Maiyegun don't come, oh yo yo. Aha. Now you Maiyegun làwa mọ̀ làmọ̀ tó dòdòdò. Maiyegun diary, Maiyegun number one.
Good morning to you, good afternoon to you, good evening to you, from wherever you are watching from. This is Maiyegun live.
Lórí Facebook, lórí YouTube.
Maiyegun diary, Maiyegun number one.
Gbogbo bó ṣe ń lọ ni Maiyegun já wa sí.
Maiyegun diary, Maiyegun number one.
Àṣírí ọ̀jẹ̀lú kì í tó níbẹ̀ o.
Maiyegun diary, Maiyegun number one.
Bó bá ṣe é, àní Maiyegun máa wí.
Maiyegun diary.
I got something today, which is part of our series on, history of Yoruba land and Yoruba people, from the Genesis to Revelation. So I got a delivery of one of the other books, and I'm going to be sharing that with you at some point on Maiyegun's diary Politico. Quite interesting.
Maiyegun diary, Maiyegun number one.
Àní Maiyegun làwa mọ̀ tó dòdòdò.
Maiyegun diary.
The history of the Yorubas from the earliest times to the beginning of the British Protectorate, authored by Samuel Johnson. You know him?
Ọ̀jẹ̀lú ẹ̀ súnra jù.
Maiyegun ti dé.
Àní ẹ̀ súnra jù.
Maiyegun ti dé.
lórí Facebook
Maiyegun ti dé.
àní ẹ̀sùn láti
Maiyegun ti dé.
lórí YouTube
Maiyegun ti dé.
àní ẹ̀sùn láti
Maiyegun ti dé.
ọba bá gbé wúrẹ́.
Maiyegun máa bí.
One of the things, one of the earliest sign, as you are joining us and sharing this broadcast, yeah. So tag your friends, invite your not so friendly friends, and tell them that Maiyegun today, you know, as usual. One of the things I quickly sensed that this is going to be a great, add-on of knowledge to many of us, especially the young people who are members of Maiyegun's Diary, Politico, and their Yorubas, who want to know their history. We all want to know our history. You know, one of the things that I felt when I got the book was that I bought the book for, I don't know, maybe about 40 pounds, and then another book for another 40 pounds. I bought two books for about 80 pounds. And when this second one came, listen, I got a voucher. I mean, it's going to be a blessing, isn't it? I got a voucher of 75 pounds to go and buy myself any nice, beautiful, expensive wine from this particular luxurious wine shop. So I will share the content with you. It's going to be a long read, but this tells us exactly where we started from. Detailed accounts that will help you to further research about who we are as a people, Yorubas, worldwide. Now, let's get started with the program. So share the broadcast once again.
àní ẹ̀sùn láti
Maiyegun ti dé.
ọba bá gbé wúrẹ́.
Maiyegun máa bí.
àní ẹ̀sùn láti
I wish I could do that.
ijó ìgbádìyẹ.
Maiyegun máa bí.
I wish we could split
àní
it.
ẹ̀sùn láti
Maiyegun ti
I'll drink the wine on your behalf while I, the very, very lovely wine. I'll drink that on your behalf while I divulge the contents of this great book. We'll read it together.
àní ẹ̀sùn láti
Maiyegun ti dé.
aṣòfin tí ń rúfin o.
Maiyegun máa bí.
àní ẹ̀sùn láti
Maiyegun ti dé.
òkúra olóṣèlú.
Maiyegun máa bí.
àní ẹ̀sùn láti
Maiyegun ti dé.
ọ̀jẹ̀lú ẹ̀sùn láti
Maiyegun ti dé.
àní ẹ̀sùn láti.
Thank you. So, just for a starter, before we get fully into the program, in this book, I want to give you a little bit of an insight to what I have been talking about. Why, when you see us reading this as a Yoruba man or a friend of Yorubas who just want to know more about us, this could be your window to knowing us better. I mean, even us knowing ourselves better. So this is the introduction, a few pages. I'm going to read that before I get to this. Tinubu and gang. I know Nigeria, they say, is in darkness right now. Abi, the electricity workers in Nigeria, they have now down tools, shut down the national grid, transmission, generation, whatever. The whole country in darkness as we speak. Just same way, the future of the young people who are supposed to be the future of Nigeria, as nobody really cares, as many of you probably have realized, yeah? ASUU continues their strike. I'll come back to that, please. There's so much lovely stuff in there. Hang on. So the introduction into the history of the Yorubas from the earliest times to the beginning of the British protectorate. A long read or introduction, a quick one. The Yoruba country lies to the immediate west of the River Niger and south of the Kora, the western branch of the same river above the confluence, having Dahomey on the west and the Bight of Benin to the south. It is roughly speaking between latitude 6 degree and 9 degree north and longitude 2 degree 30 and 6 degree 30 east. The country was probably first known to Europe from the north through the explorers of northern and central Africa, for in old records, The Hausa and Fulanis Fulani names are used for the country and its capital. Thus, we see in Webster's Gazetteer, Yariba, West Africa, east of Dahomey, area 70,000 square miles, population 2 million, capital Katunga. These are the Hausa terms for Yoruba and for Oyo. The entire south of the country is a network of lagoons connecting the deltas of the Great River Niger with that of the Volta, and into this lagoon, which is belted with a more or less dense mangrove swamp. Most of these rivers, which flows through the country north to south, pour their waters. It will thus be seen that the country is for the most part a tableland. It has been compared to half of a pie dish turned upside down, rising from the coast in the south gradually to a height of some 5,000 feet in more or less dense forest, into a plain diversified by a few mountains ranges continuing into its gentle rise in some parts to about 1,000 feet above sea level. It then slopes down again to the banks of the Niger, which encloses it in the north and east. In a valuable letter by the Reverend S.A. Crowder, afterward Bishop to Thomas J. Hutchinson, Esquire, Her Britannic Majesty's Consul for the Bight of Biafra and the island of Fernando Po, published as Appendix A to the book entitled Impressions of the Western Africa, we find the following graphic description of the country, describing the Yorubas. This part of the country, of which Lagos is the Bight of Benin, is the seaport. Which Lagos in the Bight of Benin is the seaport, is generally known as the Yoruba country, extending from the Bight to within 2 or 3 days' journey to the banks of the Niger. This country comprises many tribes governed by their own chiefs and having their own laws. At one time, they were all tributaries to one sovereign, the king of Yoruba, including Benin on the east and Dahomey on the west, but are now independent. This book was published in 1901, by the way. The writing started from 1930s. The original manuscript was lost, but the leftover and the pieces they could put together produced this first edition in the 1900s. So, the principal tribes into which this kingdom is divided are as follows. The Egbados. The division includes Ota and Lagos near the sea coast, forming a belt of country on the banks of the lagoon in the forest. Toketu on the border of Dahomey on the west. Then the Ijebu on the east on the border of Benin. Then the Egbas of the forest, now known as the Egbas of Abeokuta. Then comes Yoruba proper northwards in the plain, Ife, Ijesha, Ijamo, Efon, Ondo, Idoko, Igbomina, and Ado, near the banks of the Niger, from which a creek or stream a little below Ida is called Do or Ido River. The chief produce of this country is the red palm oil made from the kernel, shea butter from nuts of shea trees, groundnuts, barley seed, and cotton in abundance, and ivory. All these are readily procured for European markets. The present seat of the king of Yoruba is Ago, otherwise called Oyo, after the name of the old capital visited Clapperton and Lander, or let me say visited by Clapperton and Lander. A king is acknowledged and his person is held sacred. His wives and children are highly respected. Any attempt of violence against a king's person or of the royal family, or any act of wantonness with the wives of the king is punished with death. There are no written laws, but such laws and customs that have been handed down from their ancestors, especially those respecting, respecting relative duties, have become established laws. The right to the throne is hereditary, but exclusively in the male line or the male issue of the king's daughters. The government is absolute, but it has been much modified since the kingdom has been divided into many independent states by slave wars into what may be called a limited monarchy. Then physical features. The country, Yoruba, presents generally two distinct features: the forests and the plain. The former comprising the southern and eastern parts, or portions, rather. The latter, the northern, central, and western. Yoruba proper lies chiefly in the plain and has a small portion of forest land. The country is fairly well watered, but the rivers and streams are dependent upon the annual rains. An impassable river in the rains may become but a dry water course in the dry season. There are a few high mountains in the north and west, but in the east, the prevailing aspect is high ranges of mountains from which that part of the country derives its name, Ekiti, a mound, being covered as it were with nature's mound. The soil is particularly rich and most suitable for agriculture, in which every man is more or less engaged. The plain is almost entirely pasture land. Minerals apparently do not exist to any appreciable extent, except iron ores, which the people work themselves and from which they formerly manufactured all their implements and husbandry and war and articles for domestic use. Flora. The forest, or let me say the forest teem with economic and medicinal plants of tropical varieties, as well as timber, of which mahogany, cedar, brimstone, counter, and iroko are the principal. There are also to be found the abura, useful for carving purposes, ebony, hata, a hard wood used for facing carpenter's tools, the iki, a hard wood which when dry is very difficult to work, as it speedily blunt-edged tools, the ori, another hard wood useful for making piers on the coast, and the hahanyo, a very hard wood, unaffected by ordinary fires, dry rot, or termites. All these are indigenous, but recently Indian teak has been introduced and it flourishes widely, as well as the beefwood tree on the coast. Although a large variety of fruit can be grown, yet the people do not take to horticulture. What there are grow almost wild, very little attention being paid to them. So to say, pawpaw, bananas of several varieties, plantains, oranges, pineapples, dioro, plums, yellow and black, the rough skin plum, the butt lime are to be found everywhere. Some fruit trees have been introduced which have become indigenous, Example, the sweet and sour sop, the avocado or alligator pear, guavas of two kinds, pink apples, rose apples, mangoes, the breadfruits and the bread nut trees, the golden plum, etc., etc. All these are cultivated, but not widely, as at 1900. Vegetables, of which there are several kinds, are largely cultivated. Yam, cocoa, cassava, sweet potatoes are the principal roots used as diets. Also beans, white and brown, small and large, and the groundnut are largely grown for food. The Guinea corn grows in the north and maize in the south. The calabash gourd and egusi from the seeds of which egusi oil is processed grow everywhere. Fauna, big game abound, especially in the north, where the lion is not far to seek. Also the elephant, buffalo, leopard, wolf, foxes, jackals, monkeys of various species, deer, porcupine, etc. The hippopotamus is found in large rivers, and alligators in the swamps and lagoons in the south. The usual domestic animals and poultry are carefully reared. Of birds, we have the wild and tamed parrots, green pigeons, stork, cloudbirds, and others of the tropical feathered tribe. The country was at one time very prosperous and powerful, but there is probably no other country on this earth more torn and wasted by internal dissensions, tribal jealousies, and fratricidal feuds, a state of things which unhappily continues up to the present time. When the central authority, which was once all powerful and far too despotic, grew weak by driving the powerful chiefs into rebellion and internecine wars, the entire kingdom became broken up into petty states and independent factions, as we now know them, Yoruba land. As far as it is possible for one race to be characteristically like another, from which it differs in every physical aspect, the Yorubas, it has been noted, are not unlike the English in many of their traits and characteristics. It would appear that what the one is among the whites, the other is among the blacks. Love of independence, a feeling of superiority over all others, a keen commercial spirit, and of indefatigable enterprise, the quality of being never able to admit or consent to a defeat, as finally settling a question upon which their mind is bent, are some of those qualities peculiar to them, and no matter under what circumstances they are placed, Yorubas will display them. We have even learnt that those of them who had the misfortune of being carried away to foreign climes so display these characteristics there and assume such airs of superiority and leadership over the men of their race they met there, in such a matter of fact way that the attention of their masters was perforce drawn to this type of new arrivals, and from then they selected overseers. This trait will be clearly discerned in the narratives given in this history. But apart from the general, each of the leading tribes has special characteristics of its own. Thus, dogged perseverance and determination characterize the Jebus. Love of ease and a quickness to adapt new ideas to the Egbas. The Jebus and Ekitis are possessed of a marvelous amount of physical strength, remarkable docility, and simplicity of manners, and love of home. Among the various families of Yoruba proper, the Ibarapas are laborers, laborious farmers. The Ibolos are rather docile and weak in comparison with others, but the Ekpos are hardy, brave, and rather turbulent, whilst the Oyos of the metropolitan province are remarkably shrewd, intelligent, very diplomatic, cautious almost to timidity, provokingly conservative, and whether very masterful. The early history of the Yoruba country is almost exclusively that of the Oyo division, the others being then too small and too insignificant to be of any import. But in later years, this state of things has been somewhat reversed. The center of interest and sphere of importance having moved southwards, especially since the arrival of the Europeans on the coast. Such is the country, and such are the people whose history, religion, social polity, manners, and customs, etc., are briefly given in the following pages, starting with Yoruba language. I'm going to read this, I swear. You're going to love it. It's so amazing. It is detailed. You will get to know who we are, who are the Yorubas, how come that somehow, it is so difficult for people to agree, to be led by their noses when those who dragged us and kept us as part of Nigeria and watch us lose everything from our culture, tradition, our religion, and everything that defined us to this set of slavery or enslavement that they want us to get used to in Nigeria. So, ladies and gentlemen, you are welcome once again into tonight's broadcast. We're going to start with a big question, and if you want to put it this way, you will say, Nigeria is bleeding, Nigeria is hemorrhaging, Nigeria is dying. But those who are killing Nigeria, they never seems to care, right? Young people whose future should be paramount in every scheme of thing. For those who might claim to be, representing us or even leading, so to say, even though they are not leading anybody but themselves, or rather doing it for themselves. So today, it was yesterday when the Minister of State for Labor, Festus Otobokeyamo. Thank you very much, ma. Mrs. Toyin Olaoye. Oh, sorry, Adeoye rather. How are you, ma? Thank you. The students in Nigeria have been on strike because the university workers have down tools, right? A 2009 agreement made with the government that has to do with financing them and all that, and then their salary structure and so many other things that has to do with finance or financial issue, right? 6 months ago, they down tools that if they were not attended to, now that they've realized that those criminals in government who lied to them years ago, those who promised them that they will give them a better life once they follow their change, those who tricked them, or should I say, who brainwashed or managed to force them, were they even forced or something? I don't care. But somehow 7 years ago, those who promised them that once they come to power, the first thing they were going to make a priority is going to be education. We're going to invest in education so much that the rest of Africa is going to become so jealous of many of you young people who are going to need the education. They lied eventually. So 7 years down the line, they have now realized that they are never, ever going to ever get anything from them. And therefore, there was not going to be any work. Then they saw them printing money, sharing the same money. They saw them paying huge amount of money to terrorists. They saw them, borrowing as well, borrowing money to fund their private, luxurious lives. So they were seeing the politicians do all of that. So 6 months ago, for the recent one, the down tools. And Buhari's government decided to turn to blackmail, what they've done to you, many of you, for 7 years, when they blamed you for everything that has gone wrong with Nigeria since these rogues, these terrorists took power. So they turned it to blackmail. Like they were trying to run Nigeria aground with the amount of money they are requesting or asking for. But they are not running Nigeria aground when they are budgeting over 400 billion for the National Assembly members who are less than 1,000 people. That wasn't running Nigeria aground. When they decided to go and take a loan of $1.6 billion to build a rail track to Niger Republic at the ridiculous, interest rate that further destroyed your naira, that wasn't wrecking Nigeria. But fast forward to 2 days ago, the junior minister in Nigeria said they called a meeting. In that meeting, it wasn't to address any of the concerns, no. It was actually to plead with them like, please now, just go back to work now. We can't give you anything you are asking for, right? We don't care about, we don't really care about the future of these millions of Nigerians that we're wasting away. But if you care, please, when that didn't work, they told you, the parents, you need to go and beg ASUU, right? Now, cut it. The strike continues. So the bottom line is that you as a young person in that Nigeria today, right, who is still jumping up and down for APC, Egbe, what exactly would you say is your motivator? As in, what is it that is motivating you? Genuinely, I have an answer. I'll come back to that because there's still a long one to do. Meanwhile, in 2019, when the Parkinson that is affecting Kolu, right? When the Parkinson and the dementia were affecting Kolu was still not so visible. And I remember then when Obasanjo was writing a letter. I bet you do too. And I think I remember when he wrote a letter as well that prompted Tinubu and gang to actually call out the same Obasanjo that they mobilized in bringing Buhari to government. So their first failure of 2015 to 2019, and in defense of that failure, in response to Obasanjo, Kolu, still a bit all right, had this to say just before what happened again today, just for the optics, as they would say.
The party of the past, who have spent 16 years of our precious life to demolish our economy, frustrate our people, and lead us almost astray. We said then, enough is enough. We came together. They call us all sorts of names. They say it's impossible. We bonded together. We chose a great symbol as our party symbol, the broom. We brought the revolution about. We got an army general retired to lead us, among other generals. They called me. We don't want the general One member said he cannot be general anymore. He's tired of these generals. I say, until we finish with Boko Haram and looting, we need one more general at least. Those who ask me not to follow and support the general, Uncle Backdoor, who had been a general himself and who had been elected president, I call him election rigger. Let's compare the two of you. The man has the temerity to write a letter, go to the post office. We say, no, we are not using the post office like that anymore. We are now using email. Your letter is not delivered. You are analog. They better look at their houses. The one they built above, it is being deserted. It's a house of frustration and migration to other various parties. If he has the temerity to say Buhari must not run again, in which party? Thank God he's not a member of our party. We hold our future in our hand. What is your business, busybody? Fortunately, he has turned the card of his previous party, his own legacy. So he has known no more. Now, we have a general that they asked me not to follow. Because it was a general. If you call yourself a Democrat, don't follow this man. I say I'm not mad enough to listen to your lies. Thank you, Muhammadu Buhari, for the job you are doing up to date. You have not set half of the records. The record of this general, who is not a Democrat, he doesn't know the meaning of democracy. You have not tried to dismantle the National Assembly and impeach the party of the opposition or remove their governor with 6 out of 38 members. Criminal assault on democracy. You have not done that, and they are writing letters.
So this is why it is criminal for you to now try and distance Tinubu from the failure of Boko Haram. It is a criminal offense. Do you understand? For those of you who are now trying your best, I don't know how you're going to do it, to distance Tinubu from the calamity Buhari. Abi, it is a criminal offense for you to even attempt it, because you are just trying to manipulate the truth. So this time around, you will say Boko Haram is Tinubu. Tinubu is Boko Haram. Boko Haram is Tinubu, and Tinubu is Boko Haram. Just say what you say. Boko Haram, Tinubu, they are both APC. APC is Boko Haram and Tinubu. When you try to change that, that is criminal. Even though the Baba they said was writing letter, who is also the godfather to Peter Obi, seems to be attracting Kolu as well. For example, today in Abeokuta. That's Obasanjo's house. I mean, come on. The same, well, they say it's politics, Abi. Don't worry. Let's continue. So, when it finally came down, then you get to see who he went to see. Obasanjo. So, touching base to say I want to be president, we came to Abeokuta to attend the program, and I cannot come here without saying hello to you, Baba Oni letter. Maybe checking on Obasanjo if he has upgraded to email, or maybe Obasanjo is also now tweeting on WhatsApp. Whatever it is, it's just for the picture while Nigeria born. The young people in every, they say if you care about the future, you will invest in the young people. And not just invest, you will invest in their education. In Nigeria, as at now, yeah, it is more or less like education is worthless, except for just to learn how to read and write. That's what they are teaching now. So if you are now a young person, like I have been reading everywhere, right, where many of you who are currently at home, and then your rent in your different schools are are still running, as Nigeria continue to stifle and stifle and stifle everyone economically. Your parents, or maybe yourself, are bearing the brunt of paying two rents in this case. Abi, well, what now baffles me somehow, which I kind of figured out, but I am still not so sure of the practicability or the reality of that theory. Because in this same sense where the economy is on is currently on a grand stall, yeah, the education is in total collapse. The healthcare is in comatose. The power sector is completely crippled. Then the downstream sector completely carbalized. And in all of this, the victims are supposed to be or are the common man. But to my surprise, when you look at this APC, Egbekegbe, the other day, Festus Otobo Keyamo was defending Bokwari, and he said, Bokwari has crushed Boko Haram, that terrorism has become nothing in Nigeria. So what he was actually saying was that that they have browbeat you, traumatized you, to the point that you have grown numb to the level of violence, terrorism that is taking place in Nigeria. That some of you are no longer angry that people are being kidnapped en masse. People are being killed, slaughtered by terrorists en masse. And the same terrorists are getting pardoned by the same country that is broke, borrowing money to buy weapons, to be carted away by the same terrorists. So you have grown numb. So to them, you are not really reacting or surprised. 40 people killed in Zamfara. Hey, 40. They've killed 40 people again. Well, every day, people die every day. They killed a young man in Delta yesterday. My brother, people die every day. Do you know how many people they kill in Zamfara? Do you know how many people they kill in Maiduguri? Do you know, they have made you grow numb as humans. So to them, terrorism is nothing. Just the same way I have seen that when you see young people struggling, tearing cloth for this same APC, Egbekegbe, telling you that that's your next president, Tinubu is your next president, bragging about it. And I am like, how? What kind of witchcraft be this? But it's not a witchcraft. What I've figured out is that say two-way things. They create demography for this. Yeah, they create demography of those, because young people who care about their future genuinely who have nothing to do with APC, Egbekegbe. Like, absolute nothing. They've shown it. They are still showing it. Every responsible, a family member, let me put it this way. Every responsible adult, responsible in the sense that, you have something doing enough that you are contributing positively to the same society that is also helping and assisting you as a citizen and all that, you know, I actually want to frame it in a different way, because trying to understand the frame mind, I mean, the mind frame of the young people who fall in the category of those who are economically disadvantaged in everything. Or the young people mostly economically disadvantaged because of the disruption in their education, the disruption in their health, as well as a disruption in their social support and all that. Things that could help them mature and become productive, right? So they've taken all of that away, and therefore made you, or made people enough to become maybe numb as well. Because I was wondering, what will make a young person still defend APC or associate with APC? I figured out that there's more that will make the young people, as they have been, to continue to align with their own oppressors. Terrorism is nothing, but people are dying. And then it was pretty much like, if it hasn't happened to me, then maybe it is not happening, or maybe it is being exaggerated. That leverage is what APC is giving back and saying, we have crushed terrorism so much that people don't even feel it anymore. As a success story, you as a young person, that you can tell that the destruction and the ruins that these guys have done put certainty into a bleak future for you, a future where you are not prepared, a future that they never prepare you for, the one that is cold, that is lonely, and that is in a way selfish, greedy, and it's kind of inhuman as well. That's exactly what they are preparing you for. And you as a young person, how do you actually make a choice or make peace with that? They have destroyed the economy and they continue to do it. Okay? Before they came in, they said that people destroying people, they were printing, so they were borrowing money to pay salaries. Today, I told you before December, many of you would not be able to receive any salary again. They have depleted everywhere, and they continue to move on like it's absolute nothing. And you as a young person, if you picture yourself in the Nigeria they are building for you in the next 10 years, and you see those who are the drivers behind that, yeah, what would be that your motivator that actually makes you think? Your education is completely mortgaged, like forgone. Even those who got the education, they are finding their ways out of Nigeria before they could probably make any use of it in any way. A monopolized opportunity, space. There's civil opportunities for young people, and they do it with no care in this world. Like, what are you gonna do? The Ministry of Agriculture came out. It all started with their National Assembly talking about the ASUU and no money. Yeah. Their National Assembly budgeted over 400 billion for themselves, including 35 billion to renovate the National Assembly. Yeah. 400 billion. They don't have the money. They will have to go and borrow it for themselves. And because Nigeria, as the way it is, yeah, when Nigeria destroy education, they don't just destroy education of a part. They destroy it for everyone that is part of Nigeria, including Yoruba land. One of the advantages of independent Yoruba nation out of Nigeria is the fact that at least Yorubas can be able to fund education properly for our children, Because there lies the future that so many of you right now are not prepared for. There lies the save or the safety from it. When they shut universities, they shut that. When they cut funding, when they cut everything out, and then they strangulate every the sector of funding, the resultant effect of that is going to be on our own on our own children who are going to form the future adults who are also going to find themselves in possible political positions, making decisions for your own children and your children, like what you are witnessing today. Nigeria, or one Nigeria, made that happen. Nigeria cannot fund education anymore, and Yorubas will have to live with that. Yes, we have to. They said, "Oh, let the universities fund themselves," which means let people pay and fund their own education without any interference from the federal government. Do you know why they won't do that? They will not do that. The reason is because if you want people to come to your school, yeah, it means that you would have to build standard. Abi, you won't have to use quota system to admit people into your different colleges. When in down south, to gain admission into Unity School or federal universities, you have to what? You have to get the highest cutoff mark to be at least eligible to be considered, which is under probability. Meanwhile, the up north, they don't really have to break a sweat. So if you allow the universities to fund themselves, it simply means people will have to come to your school because you have standard. They're not going to have to. Then the schools with the cutoff mark of 20 or 2 to gain admission into to study law and all of those, yeah, they will have the remnants, or they would have to increase their own standard. Increasing their standard will automatically cut off the northern populace access to education. So one Nigeria that these people built for you is to manage to have control and influence in every sector of Nigeria and to be run according to the dictates of the backward northern criminal politicians or political elite, as you call them. So if you haven't seen it that way, I just painted a nice picture for you, and I'm going to paint more. It simply means that those of them brandishing cutoff mark of a 10, 10 in JAMB to gain admission, they would have to forgo that, because if you need to attract real funding from anywhere, you have to improve the standard. To keep the standard low and to continue to shun out mad illiterates, religious fanatics, bigots, who care nothing or no hoot about any one Nigeria other than the one that is serving their purpose. So they have to continue to hold that by saying, we will continue to fund it, even when they can't fund it. So this disadvantage of one Nigeria is what I just told you there. If Nigeria is not forced together as a unitary kind of a country, where everyone have access or are able to tap their own resources to build and develop their own different sectors as a people and as a country, the Yorubas, we can fund our own education. We did that without the oil money as they claim today. We did. But today, when you hear about ASUU, even right there in Yoruba land, everybody is at home. Now, those young people who were supposed to be, scholars, researchers, scientists, engineers, those who are supposed to build our world, they are now at home arguing. Those who are busy with Bet Niger, they are busy with Bet Niger. Those who are now running a gig for APC, PDP, they are doing that right now for the ASUU. And guess what? All of you are also still thinking Nigeria has a future. Who are those who are going to build that future? These hustlers that Nigeria is making, your politicians who are as well as hustlers, pickpockets, scroungers, lazy, jobless, freeloaders, entitled, crazy men and women. So look at the society and how conflicted it has become. Yorubas could generate electricity that could power our own homes, our industries, create jobs for our young people. I mean, create a safe border, safe communities within Yoruba land. All this can be done, but Nigeria won't let you do it. You know why? Because they have this fake constitution. In fact, I want to talk more about what Yorubas are missing. As a Yoruba man or woman, young person watching me right now, the reason why many people like myself are not, we are no longer in any way interested in any of those promises that those people will give to you. All the racial card or tribal card they're going to play, ethnic card, religious card, and all those cards they're going to play, emotional blackmail and all things that comes with them. This is their season. This is when they put up the best display of acting. Okay, there are no best actors than politicians. The ones that follow them are religious leaders. They are also the best actors and actresses. The ones after them, they are those who claim to be lawyers. They are also dramatists, personnel, right? But politicians take the first seats, and this is their season. The ones who are sick are going to present themselves as healthy, as agile, as strong as anything. The ones who are dumb, they're going to present themselves as smart, wise, intelligent. The ones who are wicked, they're going to present themselves as loving, caring, and then human. The ones who are like cold-hearted and murderous terrorists, they're going to tell you that they are from God and then the messiahs. This is their season. And in this life, politicians can play any role. If you want them to play the role of poor people, they will play that perfectly. If you want them to play the role of men of God, they will play that so perfectly. If you want them to play the role of the best economists in the whole world, politicians in this period, they will begin to sound like the best economists in the whole world. If you want them to sound, to hack the role of scientists, politicians at this time, they will begin to dole out different scientists' terms and all of that. Yes, they are acting. And on Maiyegun's diary, Politico, we have seen so many acts and so many actors in the past, to the point that everything just looked the same. Nothing fascinating, nothing interesting, just same scripts. Wash, rinse, and dry. Wash, rinse, dry. It's just a repetition. A catch-22 or a rat race. But we know that if not for this same constitution, trashy one, I'll tell you what you are missing as an indigenous people of Nigeria, okay? From everywhere we come from, right? Our land. If to say this land were allowed to breathe into us, as we breathe into them, into it, yeah, it would have propered us. It would have, protected us. We would have felt safer. We would have felt, prosperous. We would have been more stronger than what Nigeria made. Nigeria made us weaker, and it made us weaker from within by destroying every value that we hold sacred as a people, right? And trying to change that into something that we are not. That conflicting stuff was made perfect by this trashy fraud called 1999 Constitution. I'm coming back.
Ten things you never knew about the 1999 Constitution. Did you know that the 1999 Constitution was promulgated by the Military Decree 24 of 1999? And to think of it, this 1999 Constitution was never subjected to a referendum.
Did you also know that this 1999 Constitution was written by a selected few that never got the consent of the indigenous nationalities or its representation?
Did you know that after writing the 1999 Constitution, it was hidden from the public until after the inauguration of President Obasanjo in 1999?
Funny enough, This 1999 constitution was not printed by the government press or any known printers in 1999.
Did you know that the 1999 Constitution created a unitary government as against the projected federal government, and this forged an inefficient, over-centralized government, as well as creating a centralized judiciary whom has never been autonomous?
In all this, did you know that this 1999 constitution falsely and maliciously claims that the indigenous nationalities willingly handed over their lands and resources to the federal government?
And interestingly, did you know that the 1999 Constitution calls state governors chief security officers, but at the same time centralized all the security agencies and denies these state governors control over any of the security
And
agencies?
finally, do you know that the illegitimate 1999 Constitution in Section 6, subsection 6C, absolves the government from liabilities regarding rights of the citizens as provided in Chapter 2, making this right not justifiable?
This and many more are the reasons why corruption, unaccountability, incompetence, and insecurity are institutionalized in Nigeria.
That fake book, that I don't know. It's just because of these guys, they have been those who have made it difficult for you as a human being, a Nigerian in Nigeria, to attain your full potential. And I'll tell you how. It's like a structural takeover. When they said they were giving us democracy in 1999, so which then put us at the mercy of a federal government that was never federal. So, if you want to destroy a country, do you know, all you have to do is to destroy the education. If you can destroy the education of a country, then you have destroyed that country without having to fire a shot. Do you get that? There is this, there's this writing. In fact, a quote somehow said, "How to destroy a country." At the entrance gate of a university in South Africa, the following message was pasted for contemplation, just to contemplate, yeah? In quotes, "Destroying any nation does not require the use of atomic bombs or the use of long-range missiles. It only requires lowering the quality of education and allowing cheating in the examination by the students, because patients will die at the hands of such doctors. Buildings will collapse at the hands of such engineers. Money will be lost at the hands of such economists and accountants. Humanity will die in the hands of such religious scholars. Justice will be lost at the hands of such judges. The collapse of education is the collapse of the nation. You don't need bomb. You don't need missiles. All you have to do is to destroy the education. You know they have destroyed the education of Nigeria. You know it. Abi, the product of all those cheating, all those destruction, the children who were the product of that destruction, right? They are now the one destroying. They are the ones in control of Nigeria now, and they are the ones destroying and about to burn down Nigeria. Some of them are old now, and they continue to destroy that education. You see now, many of you who are at home right now, watching Maiyegun from Ikorodu, Isale Iko or Oshodi, or you are watching Maiyegun right there in Abeokuta, or I don't know, wherever you are watching Maiyegun from in Yoruba land, you are supposed to be in school. You were supposed to have had your 2-semester examinations. Maybe you should have had your, what do you call it? No, you've been stagnant. In that time, you have been the devil's workshop in either way or just wasting away. And you probably know that yourself. You do. No thanks to the rulers of Nigeria who did all of this deliberately. You should know that deliberately. They are politicizing your future. You are supporting them. In 10 years' time, some of you are going to become PA to, or maybe you'll find yourself as councillors, chairmen. Education no kuku matter anymore. Or does it? I don't think it matters anymore, right? Yeah. So you become what? Honorables, this and that. Since you can go and use your secondary school certificate, the one that didn't have any strike or delay, you don't need the university anymore, Abi. They destroyed that. And guess what? Now go come become lawmakers. Which law do you think they will be making? You see those ones who are making your laws now. You see those ones who are your governors now. They also lived through the period that their own forebearers also destroyed this same education. Don't let anybody lie to you. What you are doing right now is contributing to what your own children are going to face in 10, 15 years' time. It is what it is, except you break the circle if you want to. The people who destroyed Yoruba land, what they did first was to destroy education. And they were able to do that because of Nigeria. You know, once ASUU goes on strike, everybody goes home now. No be so. So once they send a curriculum and say, this is what you're going to teach them, that's what they will teach you, isn't it? So it is more or less like they shape you for a future that you're not prepared for. The one that will continue to make you enslaved in your own supposed country. You can stop that by getting proper education, and that proper education is by understanding what they are doing to you and the consequences of what they are doing to you, and how much of that damages that is to you. Maybe not you now, maybe your children. Think about that. That's how they do. Destroy the education, and you will destroy the country. Yoruba people. So when you see them walk about and do all of these promises and all that, well, that's up to you. Agriculture Ministry used 18.9 billion naira to clear grass, to clear bush in 6 months. They're just heartbreaking, stories. But as a Yoruba man or woman, I can tell you this. If to say Yoruba land is allowed to run our own affairs as it should be, number one, by now, we would probably have developed a different template that will be the new technology, sort of, that will help us to harness, extract every resources that is available in our land, human and natural, that's there for us. Develop them to our own best use. Today, we would never have been poor. Our schools would never have been shut. Trust me, they would never have been shut. Our hospitals would never have been without doctors or without medicine. Of course, we would have never have to live in slums. We would never have to live in darkness. We would never have to live in poverty. I'm saying this to you because we have come a long way as a people. Nigeria and this British colonialism, they truncated our growth. And Nigeria is burying what should be our own legacy as a people. And unfortunately, the damage has been done, but we can still do a lot to help shape the minds of those that are coming, at least after us. So, I don't know what is motivating you as a young person. And I may never know what it is. I just think you can take a moment and tell yourself, where do you think, if Nigeria continued the way it is right now, where do you think you are going to be in 10 years' time? Away. Well, time will tell. I told you I'm going to read tonight because I really, really want to take you through, the early Yoruba. So if at this point you don't really like, the reading could be boring, of course you can excuse yourself, okay? I'm going to use the next hour to put this on Maiyegun's diary, the Yoruba language, reading from the history of the Yorubas from the earliest times to the beginning of the British protectorate. You are welcome to be part of us if you would like it. So I read the intro to you earlier. Now I am about to go into detailed history of Yoruba language. Ladies and gentlemen, the Yoruba language has been classed among the unwritten African languages. The earliest attempt to reduce this language into writing was in the early 40s of the last century, which was the 18th century, 17 something, when the Church Missionary Society, with the immortal Reverend Henry Venn as secretary, organized a mission to the Yoruba country under the leadership of one of their agents, the Reverend Henry Townsend, an English clergyman then at work at Sierra Leone, and the Reverend Samuel Ajayi Crowther, the first African clergyman of the CMS, also at work in the same place. After several fruitless efforts had been made, either to invent new characters or adapt the Arabic, which was already known to Muslim Yorubas, the Roman character was naturally adopted, not only because it is the only best acquainted with, but also because it would obviate the difficulties that must necessarily arise if missionaries were first to learn strange characters before they could undertake scholastic and evangelistic work. With this as basis, special adaptation had to be made for pronouncing some words not to be found in the English or any other European language. The system, or rather, want of system, existing among various missionary bodies in Africa and elsewhere, emphasized the need of a fixed system of orthography. It was evidently essential for the various bodies to agree upon certain rules for reducing illiterate languages into writing in Roman characters, not only because this would facilitate cooperation, but also because it would render books much cheaper than when separate fonts of type must needs be cast for every separate system, scientific or otherwise, that each body may choose to adapt for one and the same purpose. In this effort, the committee of the CMS were ably assisted by certain philosophical doctors, as Professor Lee of Cambridge, Mr. Norris of London, and notably by Professor Lepsius of Berlin, to whom was entrusted the task of establishing a complete form of alphabetic system to which all hitherto unwritten languages could be adapted. The following remarks are largely derived from the second edition of Professor Lepsius' work. The professor consulted earlier efforts that had been made in India and elsewhere to transliterate foreign, which is Eastern characters into the Roman, and out of the chaos then existing, he established on a firm scientific basis the standard alphabet in which the Yoruba language is now written. This was adopted by the CMS in 1856. By this system, therefore, former translations had to be transliterated under certain fixed rules. The number of letters in the standard alphabet is necessarily very large, as it was designed to meet the requirements of all nations, but with diacritic marks on cognate sound and accents, and the introduction of 3 characters from the Greek, the Roman characters furnish all that is necessary from which every unwritten language can draw. It is very unfortunate indeed that the system has not been faithfully followed by all, for reasons we regard as inadequate and inconclusive. This has provoked the caustic remark of the distinguished philologist, Dr. R.N. Cost, that no class of mankind is so narrow-minded and opinionated as the missionary, except the linguist. For even in Yoruba, which professed to have adopted Lepsius' standard, certain particulars, as we shall see, have been departed from, by no means for the better. Keen was the controversy on this point between English and German missionaries of the Yoruba mission in its early days. In the following pages, the style commonly used in the familiar Yoruba translations is departed from in some important particulars, as they present some peculiar defects which ought to be rectified. We shall endeavor to follow Professor Lepsius' standard alphabet as closely as possible. Well, the professor himself has considered that shades of sound can be adapted therefrom to meet special requirements without departing from the principles laid down. Says he is, in his second edition, the exposition of scientific and practical examples according to which a suitable alphabet for universal adoption in foreign languages might be constructed, as I'm going to jump that and quickly go into a part that interests me when I was reading it earlier. Yeah, so certain rules of transcription are imperative for a correct scientific method of procedure. Whatever may have been the difficulties encountered in the ancient written languages, so far as the Yoruba and other unwritten languages are concerned, the field lies clear. The English mode of pronouncing the vowels had to be rejected in favor of the Italian and continental mode. The following rules or principles have been laid down, and the power of each letter as representing certain sounds as handed down from antiquity should be retained, and 2, the power of each letter as representing certain sounds as handed down from antiquity should also be retained, and then 3, in fact, that's the formation of the language in Yoruba. So the alphabet, the consonant, the system of consonants, the A, B, D, A, F, G, B. How did they come by that? They said the same way, the same may be said of the letter C, which is S, and the sound sh referred to above. So the difference is indicated in the standard alphabet by a diacritical mark, e.g., S like that as C, and then S with a mark underneath as she. So the Yorubas can safely dispense with the latter, and for the sake of simplicity, this ought to have been done, as no difference as to the meaning of a word is suggested by the same word being pronounced soft or harsh. So si, sh, s, sh, ho, ho, A, B, D, A, F, G, B, E, G, K, L, M, N, O, R, P, C, Sh, T, U, V, G. Now, that is our own A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, and all that, okay? So, A, B, D, A, F, G, B, E, G, K, L, M, N, O, R, C, Sh, T, U, V, G. Yeah? Then going into accents or tones. An accent, in the accepted sense of terms, denotes the stress laid upon a particular syllable, be it the ultimate, penultimate, or antepenultimate syllable of a word. In Yoruba, it is used differently. What are called accents, and for which the usual symbols are used, are really tones, of which there are three: the elevated, the middle, and the depressed. For the first and the last, the acute and the grave accent are used respectively. The middle tone, in its simplest form, requires no accent sign. In Yoruba, vowels are of greater importance than consonants, and tones than vowels. So, hence, the peculiarity of this language, that musical sounds can be employed to convey a correct idea of words in speech. Another error into which those responsible for the present mode of writing Yoruba have fallen by departing from the standard system is the introduction of the circumflex and its indiscriminate use as a sign of a so-called long vowel. So there are really no longer or short, there are really no long or short vowels in Yoruba as understood in the English language. What appears to be long is the coalescence of two or more vowels, which an elation of the intervening consonant, e.g., bale is a contraction. Bale is a contraction of babaile, that is father of the house. Here is the second B is, here the second B is dropped. Instead of babaile, is turned to baile. The two A's coalesce and the I is absorbed in them, being represented by a prolongation of the tone. The vowels are therefore simple and compound. The meaning of a word varies as the tone. Example, we may say ba, which is, ba, or ba, or ba. So, ba, the voice being raised, even or depressed respectively, which is ba, ba. Hang on, yeah. The first ba, or let me say the first ba means, or let me say the first ba means to meet. The second ba means to lie in ambush. That is ba. Right? Ba is to meet. Let me take that again. Ba is to meet. Ba is to lie in disguise or something, lie in ambush, hide. That means you are oba segbekon. That is, you are lying in ambush. But it's the same spelling, but different tones, right? So that's what they mean there. So they said you may also have the second and the third ba. Ba is to alight. That is to come down from somewhere. That's, you are like, now you are lighted. You come off somewhere. You are now like ba. So we have ba to meet, ba to hide, or ambush, right? And they all have all these tones, by the way. Okay, here is another one. Be, 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 be. They are tones, Abi. So the be, the be with the me, the sign me on it, which is the vowel, right? Be, be means to split, open. Be or be is to be officious. That is something you say jump, or you are obey. Then be is to beg or plead. Also in Yoruba, we have what you say boo. Bu, bu, mm, mm, mm. Bu, which is a me, means to abuse. Ebu, bu, abuse. The second one is, bu, which is moldy, something that we can say oti bu, inu won bu, inu won bu, won roll sa, something moldy, bu. The third one is to bu, do, bu. That is to cut open. That is you bu. Take a portion. Anyway, let's go to the use of accent. To this method of using accent over the vowels, Professor Lepsius made the strongest objections as by such a use, the accent have been diverted from their proper uses to serve another purpose. Right? We have he therefore proposes on this, which are actually like a part and parcel. Somebody said the boo abuse. No, it's not abuse. Boo is abuse. Yeah. So there are also parts where you have agba, an elder, agba, a rope, domi, agba, a canyon, ahanyo, anxiety or care, ahanyo, a cockroach, ayan, a hardwood, baba, father. And then you have a which is a baba, which is called the guinea corn. We have a epo, rere, palm oil. We have a epo, which is the bark of a tree. Then we have a epo, which is weeds. We have a eri, which is the corn chaff. We have a eri, which is the money dew. We have eri. The first one is eri. The second one is eri, which is dirt, like dirty stuff. So playing with words and grammar here now, okay? In Yoruba, we have apata, which is rock. We also have apata, apata kwiti, which is a shield. We have apata, a butcher. That's apata, alapata. We also have iya, 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 which is mother. We also have iya, which is punishment. We also have iya, which is separation. Yawon. So we have iko, which is cough. Then we also have iko, which is a state messenger. Then we also have iko, which is a hook or hanging. We have ori, which is head. We also have ori, which is shea butter. We have ori, which is a black plum. We have opo, a post. We also have opo, a widow. We also have opo, to be busy. We have oko, husband. We also have oko, a hole. We also have oko, a spear. So we have koriko, which is grass. We also have koriko, which is also wolf. So Yorubas have all these grammatical words that came to be for generations to generations, and they continue to create those words and those things that we wish they were documented enough. Now look at this, how they sketch Yoruba grammar. Okay, from this hang on, they said the formation of words. The efforts we have seen made to produce a Yoruba grammar on the exact lines of an English or Latin grammar represent, in our opinion, an honest labor. Highly commendable indeed, it may be, but totally in the wrong direction and little calculated to elucidate the genius of the language. That is to avoid the genius of our language. They had to go and use those early people who are like able to write down Yoruba. Anyway, on the contrary, they go a long way to obscure it. The Yoruba belongs to the agglutinated order of speech, not to the inflectional. When therefore particles are used to form cases, example, or etc., it is mere pedantry. I mean, it's mere pedantry to talk of declensions. I don't know the meaning, but I managed to say that one. You can help me look it up. It is a notorious fact that educated Yorubas find it much easier to read an English book than a Yoruba production, which until recently are mostly translations. With an effort, they may plod through it, but they do not enjoy reading it, and sometimes do not even understand it, just like I said earlier. The main reasons for this are: the orthography of the language is still very defective. The style in which the books are written. This may simply be described as English ideas in Yoruba words. The result is often obscurity and confusion of thought. In the Church Missionary Intelligencer for March 1880, a missionary to Japan who had experienced a similar difficulty wrote thus, in quotes, there is great danger in all use of this language, of thinking that when we have rendered various English words into Japanese, we have of necessity expressed the thoughts which the English words convey. Language may correspond to language, but the thought to which the language is the vehicle may be as distant as the poles. Our language must be idiomatic, or the narrative will fail to see the point on which we are endeavoring to lay so much stress. The writer has on several occasions read portions of Yoruba translations to intelligent but purely uneducated Yoruba men. They would show that they comprehended, not without an effort, what was read to them by putting pertinent questions, but then they would add, we can understand what you mean to say, but what you read there is not Yoruba. It may be book language, Edeiwe. The rock of stumbling is the desire of translators to reproduce every word and particle of the English in its exact equivalent in Yoruba, regardless of idiom, and therefore obscuring the sense of the latter. So, in taking up a Yoruba book, one is forcibly struck by the difference in style between quotations of pure Yoruba stories, phrases, or proverbs, and the notes and observations of the writer. The former runs smooth and clear. The latter appears stiff and obscure because the writer, which is knowledge of the English grammar and language, wrote English ideas and idioms in Yoruba words, illustrating what is said above. So which means most of what you are going to read as the foundational Yoruba nouns, pronouns, vowels, sentences, grammars, and all those stuffs. They are mostly from the interviews, words of the early Yorubas, and at the same time with the add-on of the writers' opinions or the views of what they were told. In other words, they may not completely represent everything word for word if they were indeed written in Yorubas as they should have been, but they are windows into what will help us understand more how everything come to be. So talking about grammar and forming grammars, right? You know, adjectives, nouns, and all those stuffs in English, right? But we have them in Yorubas. Let's take a look at the adjectives part of a Yoruba grammars now. Adjectives are generally placed after the nouns. Nouns they qualify as Eshindudu, a black horse, Omorere, a good child. They are placed before the nouns when some special attribute of that noun is to be emphasized, e.g., Agidi Omo, a stubborn child, Apa Omo, a slovenly child, Alagbara Ọkùnrin, a brave fellow, Abeokuta, a very hard stone. These are really substantive used attributively. They may more correctly be regarded as nouns in the construct state and not pure adjective, e.g., a brute of a man, a more emphatic expression than a brutish man. The view of showing the identity of a substantive with an adjective is clearly shown by Mason. The adjective was originally identical with the noun, which in the infancy of language named objects by naming some attributes, by which they were known. In course of time, the adjective was developed into a separate part of speech, the function of which was to attach itself to the noun. So even now, it is sometimes difficult to draw the line between them, as nouns are sometimes used attributively and adjectively. Adjectives rather pass by various stages into nouns. So let's look at a comparison of adjective here now, okay? Using Yoruba words. To use the words like this, Oga Ogo Julo, for the most high, or Ó wù mí bẹ́ẹ̀ yẹn púpọ̀ jùlọ, for I am most pleased at it, is to speak vile Yoruba. No pure Yoruba man, uncontaminated with English ideas, will speak in that way at all. As the genius of the Yoruba language, the working of the Yoruba mind is ideas and idiosyncrasies do not run in an Anglo-Saxon channel. It is not to be expected that the mode of expression will agree in every particular. Some teachers of the Yoruba language often fall into this error in their endeavors to find the exact equivalent in both languages. So the forms and uses of adjective in Yoruba. Now look at this one. It says, a high mountain, attributive, Òkè gíga. The mountain is high, predicative, Òkè náà ga. In Yoruba, the attributive is formed from the predicative by reduplicating the initial consonants with the vowel. Example, right? Strong, or let me say, strong bread attributes, which is strong, mean le, which is attribute, right? And then attribute, I'll take that again. Strong is predictive, which is le. Predicative rather. While lile is attributive, I'll say. Then you see sweet is predicative, which is didun. Then when didun is attributive, as they say. Hot, bono is predicative. Then you have bibono. They all mean the same thing. Go bono. Then attributive, bibono. You have a good, which is predicative. Then you have, which is good is dara, predicative. Then you have a didara, which is also good. Didara, attributive, and on like that. So if you know the example, let's go to the pronouns part of Yoruba grammar. Pronouns are used in the same sense as, in English. They are, personal. One is personal, two is relative, and three is adjective, okay? So there is no distinction in genders in any of the forms. So when you use pronouns, for example, personal pronouns, which is start with a normative case, use this word. Hi, Amy, or which is singular, Amy, or mo ti Amy ni, stuff like that. Then to the plural of Amy is awa. So personal pronoun in Yoruba. So you have iwo is personal, singular, yeah. And then you have eyin. But here is how Yoruba words sometimes work, okay? Which is always, right? You see, Amy and mo is singular. Then when you use plural of that, the plural of that is when you are more than one, is we or awa. Okay? So then when you want to talk, you'll be like ha. Instead of using Amy, you'll be using atilo, alosi. That means it's more than just you. Ha represents more than one, okay? So, but when you are using singular, use Amy, right? Now, go on to the second part. When you want to talk about somebody or a group of people, you say Iwo is singular. It's personal pronoun in Yoruba. So, which is Iwo. Now, that Iwo means you. Then, in a plural, talking about more than one person now, you can also still say that same Iwo that means you. In Yoruba, you will say enyi. But in English, you can still say you. Abi? When you are actually meaning more than just one person. You know that. In Yoruba, you will say enyi. There's no way you can say you. Or let me say, there's no way you can say iwo for more than one person in Yoruba. So, I know some of you are like, Maiyegun, these are like teaching us our language now. No, there are so many of us, our children, who actually should, come to term. I mean, get to hear this right here, right now, as they are watching too, right? Now, same thing goes to, reflect the reflective, pronoun, the relative, and on like that. But I'm going to go to the other interesting sketch. Look at this example. Talking about the word like tikara, incorporated with the personal form, is used to indicate reflexive. That's reflexive pronoun. It is placed between the nominative and then possessive, possessive cases. We'll come back to languages later. So there are modes, there are verbs, there are adverbs, there are tenses, there are great examples, conjunctions, and stuffs. Examples that are, counting, numerical. There's enumerations. Look at this one. 1 is eni, 2 is eji, 3 is eta, 4 is erin, àrún, ẹ̀fà, èje, ẹ̀jọ, ẹ̀sán, ẹ̀wá. On and on like that. Then you go to ọ̀kànlá, èjìlá, that's 11, 12, 13, ẹ̀tàlá, ẹ̀rìnlá, ẹ̀ẹ́dógún, ẹ̀rìndínlógún, ẹ̀tàdínlógún, èjìdínlógún, ọ̀kàndínlógún, ogún, ọ̀kànlélógún, èjìlélógún, ẹ̀tàlélógún, and just like that. Then when you get to let me start from 30. So when you get to 30 is ọgbọ̀n, yeah. Then when you get to 35, it is àrúndínlógójì. That is half of 40. the way Yoruba do our own counting, right? So when we count, in fact, I'm going to read out Yoruba counts so that I can explain that to you. So Yoruba's counts like this. When we are close to this, the first number or the closest number, we count from there close to it, like we're counting up. Then we start counting down. So 35 is, instead of 35 to be harun le logbon. Look at this. So when you have 30, ogbon. 31 is okon le logbon. 32 is eji le logbon. 33 is eta le logbon. 34 is ofon. Ofon. Erin le logbon. 35 should be harun le logbon. No. It is àrún dín ní ogójì. That is 40 minus 5. That's how we count it. Àrún dín lógójì. 40 is ogójì. So you count up again. Ọ̀kan lé lógójì, 41. Èjì lé lógójì, 42. Ẹ̀ta lé lógójì, 43. But when you get to 45, you say àrún dín ní àádọ́ta. Because 60 is ọgọ́ta. Now, on and on like that, that's how you get to the middle and on like. When you get to 100, listen to this. So 100 is also different counting. Okay? 100 is ọgọ́rùn. 95 is àrúndín lọ́gọ́rùn. So 200 is igba. 300 is ọ̀ọ́dúnrún. 400 is irinwó. Ẹ̀ẹ́dẹ́gbẹ̀ta is 500. Ẹgbẹ̀ta is 600. Ẹ̀ẹ́dẹ́gbẹ̀rin is 700. Ẹgbẹ̀rin is 800. Ẹ̀ẹ́dẹ́gbẹ̀rún is 900. Ẹgbẹ̀rún is 1,000. Ẹgbẹ̀wá is 2,000. Ẹgbẹ̀dógún is 3,000. Ẹgbàájì is 4,000. Ẹ̀ẹ́dẹ́gbẹ̀ta is 5,000. Ẹgbẹ̀ta is 6,000. Ẹ̀ẹ́dẹ́gbẹ̀rin is 7,000. Ẹgbàárin, rather. Ẹgbàta is not ẹgbẹ̀ta. Ẹgbàta is 6,000. Ẹ̀ẹ́dẹ́gbàrin, ẹ̀ẹ́dẹ́gbàrin is 7,000. Ẹgbàrin is 8,000. Ẹ̀ẹ́dẹ́gbàrún is 9,000. Ẹgbàrún is 10,000. Now, when you get to 20,000, it is called ẹgbàwá or ọ̀kẹ́kan. So ọ̀kẹ́kan is 20,000. So if I give you 20,000 naira, what I gave you is ọ̀kẹ́kan naira, 20,000. So when you now go the higher numbers using cowries, so when you get to 40,000, 60,000, you just keep going on like that. Ẹgbàwá. Now, let's say you want to go to quantitative and numerical adjective. And you get to 1 million. So I'm going to take this. I'm going to take it from 20,000, which is ẹgbàwá. Now, if you want to go to 30,000, you know what you're going to say? Ẹ̀ẹ́dógún. Now, if you want to go to 32,000, for example, that is going to be, it's going to be ẹgbàwá ẹ̀rìndínlógún. Now, jump to 40,000. That is going to be ẹgbàgún or ọ̀kẹ́méjì. I hope you can put on like that, right? I hope so too. But you can look all this up online as well, if indeed you really, want to catch up on the Yoruba countings. Now let's start the Yoruba history, which I am going to do when I come back from my break. I know so many of you kind of going to be bored. I don't like listening to this. You don't have to. is so important for those who care to know or who want to be part of that in any way. But thank you anyway for your time. I'm going to be back in a minute or two to read the first chapter of our history, which indeed will be the catalyst, the springboard of more expose in this regard every time. But let me put it intermittently. Don't go anywhere. I'll be back. Anyway, thank you. I want to say thank you to every one of you who still stayed back because reading can be boring. But sometimes, if this is about your own history, something you probably would love to hear us listen to, it can also be very, very rejuvenating, encouraging, and sometimes, right, or most of the times, inspiring to make you never to settle for less. We have history. We came from somewhere, and it's been a long time. It's good if our children will get an idea why, if we say Nigeria is not for us, we're saying it from this, from this position of a sincerity for those who really care. And if they do, yeah, they would act. If this generation won't, then we must make sure that the coming generation are never going to be this docile. Hopefully, I'll start with this for those who still have the time to stay back. So thank you very much. So I'm going to get on with it. Thank you. So spend the next hour with me before we call it a night. Okay. If you're all for it, sit back, enjoy this. Or better still, if you also have a copy, you can also read with me right now, right there. We can go together. I'm in chapter 1, the first chapter of this important book to start with. Now, origin and the earliest history. The origin of the Yoruba nation is involved in obscurity, like the early history of most nations, and commonly received accounts are for the most part purely legendary. The people being unlettered and the language unwritten, all that is known is from traditions carefully handed down. The national historians are certain families retained by the king at Oyo, whose office is hereditary. They also act as the king's bards. drummers, and then cymbalists. It is on them we depend as far as possible for any reliable information we now possess. But, as may be expected, their accounts often vary in several important particulars. We can do no more than relate the tradition which have been universally accepted. The Yorubas are said to have sprung from Lamurudu, one of the kings of Mecca, whose offspring were Oduduwa, the ancestor of the Yorubas, the kings of Gogobiri and of the Kukawa, two tribes in the Hausa country. It is worthy of remark that these two nations, notwithstanding the lapse of time since their separation and in spite of the distance from each other of their respective localities, still have the same distinctive tribal marks on their faces, and Yoruba travelers are free amongst them and vice versa, each recognizing each other as one, as of one blood. As what period of time Lamurudu reigned in is unknown, but from the account given of the revolution among his descendants and their dispersion, it appears to have been a considerable time after Mahomet. We give the account as they are related. The crown prince Oduduwa relapsed into idolatry during his father's reign, and as he was possessed of great influence, he drew many after him. His purpose was to transform the state religion into paganism, and hence he converted the great mosque of the city into an idol temple. And this Asara, his priest, who was himself an image maker, studded with idols. Asara has a son called Brahma, who was brought up a Muhammadan. During his minority, he was a seller of his father's idols, an occupation which he thoroughly abhorred, but which he was obliged to engage in. But in offering for sale his father's handiwork, he usually invited buyers by calling out, who would purchase falsehood, a premonition this of what the boy will afterward become. By the influence of the crown prince, a royal mandate was issued, ordering all the men to go out hunting for 3 days before the annual celebration of the festivals held in honor of these gods. When Brahma was old enough, he seized the opportunity of one of such absences from the town of those who might have opposed him to destroy the gods, whose presence had caused the sacred mosque to become desecrated. The axe with which the idols were carved in pieces was left hanging on the neck of the chief idol. A huge thing in human shape. Inquiry being made, it was soon discovered who the iconoclast was, and when accosted, he gave replies which were not unlike those which Joash gave to the Abuzites, or those names, who had accused his son Gideon of having performed a similar act. See Judges 6, chapter 6, 28 and 30 to 33. Something similar, they said Brahma, ask that huge idol who did it. The man replied, can he speak? Then said Brahma, why do you worship things which cannot speak? He was immediately ordered to be burnt alive for this act of gross impiety. 1,000 loads of wood were collected for a stake, and several pots of oil were poured for the purpose of firing the pile. This was signal for a civil war. Each of the two parties had powerful followers, but the Mohammedan party, which was hitherto suppressed, had the upper hand and vanquished their opponents. Lamurudu the king was slain, and all his children, with those who sympathized with them, were expelled from the town. The princes who became kings of Gugubiri and of the Kukawa went afterwards, and Oduduwa eastwards. The latter traveled 90 days from the Mecca, and after wandering about finally settled down at Ile-Ife, where he met with Agboniregun or Setilu, the founder of the Ifa worship. So it means that when he came, he met Agboniregun, or the one they named Setilu. Oduduwa and his children had escaped with 2 idols to Ile-Ife. Setilu being sent, Sahibu being sent with an army to destroy or reduce them to submission, was defeated. And amongst the booty secured by the visitors was a copy of the Quran. This was afterward preserved in a temple and was not only venerated by succeeding generations as a sacred relic, but is even worshipped to this day under the name of Hidi, signifying something tied up. Such is the commonly received amount among these intelligent, although unlettered people, but traces of error are very apparent on the face of this tradition. The Yorubas are certainly not of the Arabian family and could not have come from Mecca. That is to say, the Mecca universally known in history, and no such writers of any kings of Mecca. An event of such importance, then it may be taken for granted that all such accounts and traditions have in them some basis in actual facts, nor is the subject under review exempted from the general rule. And this will become apparent on a closer study of the accounts. That the Yorubas came originally from the East, there cannot be the slightest doubt, as their habits, manners, and customs, etc., all go to prove. With them, the East is Mecca, and Mecca is the East. Having strong affinities with the East, and Mecca in the East looming so largely in their imagination, everything that comes from the East with them comes from Mecca. And hence, it is natural to represent themselves as having hailed originally from that city. The only written record we have on this subject is that of the Sultan Bello of Sokoto, the founder of that city, the most learned, if not the most powerful, of the Fulani sovereigns that ever bore rule in the Southern or Sudan. Captain Klepatin, Travels and Discoveries in Northern and Central Africa, 1822 to 1824, made the acquaintance of this monarch. From a large geographical and historical work by him, Captain Klepatin made a copious extract from which the following is taken. Yarba is an extensive province containing rivers, forests, sands, and mountains, as also a great many wonderful and extraordinary things. In it, the talking green bird called babaga or parrot is found. By the side of this province, there is an anchorage or harbor for the ships of the Christians, who used to go there and purchase slaves. These slaves were exported from our country and sold to the people of Yarba, who resold them to the Christians. The inhabitants of this province, Yarba, it is supposed originated from the remnant of the children of Canaan, who were of the tribe of Nimrod. The cause of their establishment in the West Africa was, as it is stated, in consequence of their being driven by Yaruba, son of Khatan, out of Arabia to the western coast between Egypt and Abyssinia. From that spot, they advanced into the interior of Africa till they reached Yarba, where they fixed their residence. On their way, they left in every place they stopped at a tribe of their own people. Thus, it is supposed that it is supposed that all the tribes of the Sudan who inhabit the mountains are originated, originated from them, as also are the inhabitants of Yahori. Upon the whole, the people of Yoruba are nearly of the same description as those of Nufe, known as Nupe. In the name Lamurudu or Namurudu, we can easily recognize a dialect modification of the name Nimrod. Who this Nimrod was, whether Nimrod surnamed the Strong, the son of Hassel, or Nimrod, the mighty hunter of the Bible, or whether both descriptions belong to one and the same person, we cannot tell. But this extract not only confirms the tradition of their origin, but also casts a side light on the legend. Arabia is probably the Mecca of our tradition. It is known that the descendants of Nimrod, Phoenicians, were led in war to Arabia, that they settled to Africa. We have here also the origin of term Yoruba from Yarba, their first permanent settlement in Africa. Yarba is the name as the Hausa term for Yariba, Yariba for Yoruba. It is very cautious that in the history of Mahomet, we read of a similar flight of his first converts from Mecca to the east coast of Africa. The first Hegira, they called it, due also to a religious persecution. This fact will serve to show that there is nothing improbable in the account as received by tradition. Again, that they emigrated from Upper Egypt to Ile-Ife may also be proved by those sculptures commonly known as the Ife marbles, several of which may be seen at Ile-Ife to this day. They are altogether Egyptians in form. The most notable of them is what is known as the Opa Oromiyan, the Oromiyan staff, an obelisk standing on the site of Oromiyan's supposed grave, having characters cut in it, which suggest phony. They call it like the phony supposed grave, having, or let me put it this way, Phoenician origin. 3 or 4 of these sculptures may now be seen in the Egyptian court of the British Museum, showing at a glance that they are among kindred work of art. From these statements and traditions, whether authentic or mythologic, the only safe deductions we can make as to the most probable origin of the Yorubas are that they sprang from Upper Egypt or Nubia, that they were subjects of the Egyptians' conqueror Nimrod, who was of Phoenician origin, and that they followed him in his wars of conquest as far as Arabia, where they settled for a time. How subjects termed themselves children or offspring of their sovereigns is too well known in this country, as we shall see in the course of this history. So 3, that from Arabia they were driven on account of their practicing their own religion or form of worship, which was either paganism or more likely a corrupt form of Eastern Christianity, which allowed of image worship, so distasteful to Muslims. So again, the name of the priest, Asara, is also a peculiar one. It is so much like Anasara, as is pronounced, a term which Muslims generally applied to Christians, which signifies followers of Nazarene. Yeah, as to make it probable that the revolution spoken of was in connection rather with Mohammedanism and the corrupt form of Christianity of those days. Well, lastly, the sacred relic called Idi from is being bound up and preserved, and which is supposed to have been a copy of the Quran, is probably another error. Copies of the Quran abound in Yoruba land, and they are not venerated thus. And why should this? I mean, why should party oppose, or should you say, the sacred book of this party opposed to them? One can hardly resist coming to the conclusion that the book was not the Quran at all, but a copy of the Holy Scriptures in rolls. The form in which ancient manuscripts were preserved, the Quran being the only sacred book known to later generations, which have lost all contact with Christianity for centuries after the great emigration into the heart of Africa, it is natural that their historians should at once jump to the conclusion that the thing bound up was the Quran. It might probably then be shown that the ancestors of the Yorubas, hailing from Upper Egypt, were either Coptic Christians, or at any rate that they had some knowledge of Christianity. If so, it might offer a solution of the problem of how it came about that traditional stories of the creation, the deluge of Elijah, and other scriptural characters are current amongst them, amongst Yorubas, and indirect stories of our Lord Tams, son of Moremi. But let us continue the story as given by tradition. Oduduwa and his sons swore a mortal hatred of the Muslims of their country and were determined to avenge themselves of them. But the former died at Ile-Ife before he was powerful enough to march against them. His eldest son, Okanbi, commonly called Ideko Se Roake, Ideko Se Roake, also died there, leaving behind him 7 princes and princesses, who afterward became renowned. From them sprang the various tribes of the Yoruba nation. His firstborn was a princess who was married to a priest and became the mother of the famous Olowu, the ancestor of the Owus. The second child was also a princess who became the mother of the Alaketu, the progenitor of the Ketu people. The third, a prince, became the king of the Benin people. The fourth, Orogun, became the king of Ila. The fifth, the Onisabe, or king of Sabes. The sixth, Olupopo, the king of the Popos. The seventh and the last born, the Oronyo, who was the progenitor of the Yorubas proper, or as they are better distinguished, Oyos. All these princesses became kings who wore crowns as distinguished from those who were vassals who did not dare to wear crowns, but coronets called akoro, a high-crowned head gear embroidered with silver. But it may be remarked that the Olowu's father was a commoner and not a prince of the blood, and yet he became one of the crowned heads. The following anecdotes will explain how this came about. The Yoruba princesses had, and still have, the liberty of choosing husbands. Let me say, the Yoruba princesses rather Princess, are you there? So the Yoruba princesses had, and they still have, the liberty of choosing husbands according to their fancy from any rank in life. The king's eldest daughter chose to marry her father's priest, for whom she had the Olowu. This young prince was one day playing on his father's knees, and he pulled at the crown on his head. The indulgent parent thereupon placed it on the child's head. But like some spoiled children, he refused to give it up when required. And so it was left with him. The grandfather putting on another. The child had the crown on his head until he fell asleep in his mother's arms. When she took it off and returned it to her father, but the latter told her to keep it for her son, as he seemed so anxious to have it. Hence, the right of the Olowu to wear the crown like his uncles. The same right was subsequently accorded to the Alaketu, the progenitor of the Ketu people. It was stated above that Oromiyan was the youngest of Oduduwa's grandchildren, but eventually he became the richest and the most renowned of them all. How this came about is thus told by tradition. On the death of the king, their grandfather, his property was unequally divided among his children as follows. The king of Benin inherited his money, consisting of cowrie or cowrie shells. The Orogun of Ila, his wives. The Orogun of Ila inherited his father's wives. The king of Sabe inherited the cattle. The Olupopo inherited the beads. The Olowu inherited the garments. And the Alaketu inherited the crowns. And nothing was left for Oromiyan but the land. Some assert that he was absent on a warlike expedition when the partition was made, and so he was shut out of all movable properties. Oromiyan was, however, satisfied with his portion, which he proceeded forthwith to turn to good account with the utmost skill. He held his brothers as tenants, living on the land, which was his. For rent, he received money, women, cattle, beads, garments, and crowns, which were his brothers' portions, as all these were more or less dependent on the soil and were deriving sustenance from it. And he was the one selected to succeed the father as king in the direct line of succession. To his brothers who were assigned various provinces over which they ruled more or less independently. Oromiyan himself being placed on the throne as the Alaafin, or the Lord of the royal palace of at Ile-Ife. According to another account, Oromiyan had only a bit of rag left him, containing earth, 21 pieces of iron, and a cock. The whole surface of the earth was then covered with water. Oromiyan laid his portion on the surface of the water and placed on it the cock, which scattered the earth with his feet. The wide expanse of water became filled up, and the dry land appeared everywhere. His brothers, preferring to live on dry land rather than on the surface of the water, were permitted to do so on their paying an annual tribute for sharing with their younger brother his own portion. It will be noticed that both traditions attribute the land to Oromiyan. Both confirm that Oromiyan owns the land. Hence, the common saying, Alaafin lo nile. The Alaafin is the Lord of the land. I bet many of you probably remember that, do you? Well, the pieces of iron representing underground treasures, and the cock such as subsist on the land. The former account seems more probable, the latter being little else but a travesty of the story of the creation or the flood. But it is fair to mention that the more generally received opinion is that Oromiyo became more prosperous than his brothers, owing to the fact of his living virtuously, they being given up to a life of unrestrained licentiousness, and being also by far the bravest of them all, he was preferred above them and was seated on the ancestral throne at Ile-Ife, which was then the capital of Yoruba country. The Alake and the Owa of Ilesha are said to be nearly related to the Alaafin. The former was said to be of the same mother with the one of the earliest Alaafins. This woman was called Ejo, who afterwards took up her abode with her youngest son until her death. Hence the common saying, Ejoku Ake. Do you understand? Alake's mother is called Ejo, and she's related to the earliest Alaafins. So that's why they say, if you hear anywhere they say Ejo Kusake, Ejo is the mother of Alake, of the Alake. Ake is where the Ake people lives. Ejo died at Ake. The Owa of the Ijeshas claimed to be one of the younger brothers, but his pedigree cannot now be traced. The term brother being a very elastic one in Yoruba and may be applied to any relative far or near, and even a trustee servant or to one adopted into the family. In olden times, when there was universal peace throughout the Yoruba country, before the commencement of the destructive intertribal wars, which broke up the unity of the kingdom and created the tribal independence, this relationship was acknowledged by the Owa, paying a yearly tribute of a few heads of cowries, mats, and some product of his forest to the Alaafin, while the latter sent him presents of tobes and vests and other superior articles well worthy of him as an elder brother. That the Alaafin, the Alake, and the Owa were children or grandchildren of Oromiyo seems probable. Yes, from the fact that to this day, none of them is considered properly installed until the sword of state brought from Ile-Ife, where Oromiyo was buried, is placed in his hands. Oromiyo was a nickname of the prince, his proper name being Odede. He was a man of great physical powers. He first obtained renowned, listen to this, Oromiyo, he first obtained renowned as a mighty hunter, and in process of time, he also became, like Nimrod, a mighty conqueror. The expedition against Mecca, when Oromiyo was sufficiently strong, he set off for an expedition against Mecca, to which he summoned his brothers to avenge the death of their great-grandfather, Oduduwa, and the expulsion of his party from that city. He left Adimu, one of his father's trustee servants, in charge of the royal treasures and the charms, with a strict injunction to observe the customary worship of the the customary worship of the national gods, Idi, and Orisha Osi. This is an office of the greatest importance pertaining to the king himself. But house slaves or eye servants are often entrusted with the duties of the master himself is well known in this country, as we shall see in the course of this history. It is said that the route by which they came from Mecca and which occupied 90 days was by this time rendered impassable, owing to an army of black ants blocking up the path. And hence, Oromiyo was obliged to take another route, which led through the Nupe or Takpa country. All his brothers, but the eldest, joined him. But at Ingongon, they quarreled over a pot of beer and dispersed, refusing to follow his lead. The eldest brother, calculating the distance through the Takpa country, lost courage and went eastward, promising to make his attack from that quarter should his brother Oromiyo be successful in the west. Oromiyo pushed on until he found himself on the bank of River Niger. The Takpas are said to have opposed his crossing the river, and as he could not force his way through, he was obliged to remain for a while near the banks, and afterward resolved to retrace his steps. To return, however, to Ile-Ife was too humiliating to be thought of, and hence he consulted the king of Ibariba, near whose territory he was then encamping, as to where he should make his residence. Tradition has it that the king of Ibariba made a charm and fixed it on a boa constrictor and advised Oromiyo to follow the track of the boa, and wherever it remained for 7 days and then disappeared, there it was to build a town. Oromiyo and his army followed these directions and went after the boa up to the foot of a hill called Ajaka, where the reptile remained 7 days and then disappeared. According to instructions, Oromiyo halted there and built a town called Oyo Ajaka. This was the ancient city of Oyo, marked in ancient map as Eyeo or Katunga, the latter being the Hausa term for Oyo. Capital of Yoruba. See Webster's pronouncing gazetteer. This was the Eyeo visited by the English explorer Clapperton and the landers. Oromiyo remained and prospered in the new home. His descendants spread east, west, and southwest. They had a free communication with Ile-Ife, and the king often sent to Adimu for whatever was required by him out of the royal treasures for the new city. In process of time, Adimu made himself great because he was not only the worshipper of the national deities, but also the custodian and dispenser of the king's treasures, and he was commonly designated Adimuola. That is Adimu, or Adimu of the treasures, or Adimula. That is, Adimu is become wealthy. Remember, Adimu was a slave to Oromiyo, because Oromiyo he felt like he was going to go and avenge the death of his own great-grandfather, Lamurudu, in Mecca. He decided to choose the head of his slave to be in charge of all his country, his land, his treasure, his everything. Adimu became wealthy, and that's what gave birth to Adimula. I'm still coming. But this Adimu, who became of so much consequence from his performing royal functions was originally the son of a woman condemned to death, but being found at the time of execution to be in the way of becoming a mother, she was temporarily reprieved until the child was born. Until the child was born. This child at his birth was dedicated to the perpetual service of the gods, especially the god Obatala, to which his mother was to have been sacrificed. He was said to be honest, faithful, and devoted to the king, as to his own mother, like also as to his own father, and therefore he was loved and trusted. When Adimu was announced to the kings and princes all around as the person appointed by the king to take charge of the treasures and to worship the national deities during his absence, it was generally asked, and who is this Adimu? The answer comes, Omo the son of Omo Oluwoni, the son of a sacrificial victim. This is contracted to Owoni or Owoni, which is Oluwo, being the term for a sacrificial victim. So in subsequent years, when the seat of government was removed permanently to Oyo, but not the national deities, Adimu became supreme at Ile-Ife. And his successors to this day have been termed the Olorishas. That is, the high priest or the deity worshippers to the fetish worshippers to the king and people of the whole Yoruba nation. Adimula Oodua Ooni of Ife. Do you now know the story now? Do you know the story of how Ooni of Ife came to be when they moved the headquarters of Yoruba away from Ile-Ife to Oyo? The first Ooni was Oromiyan himself. Oromiyan Odede, the first Onirisha, was also the first king. The Onile is also the first Alaafin. But when he was going on his own expedition, he decided to bring Adimu, the son of a woman sentenced to death, to be sacrificed to Obatala, a deity in Ile-Ife. And the son of this Oluwo, when they moved, when Oromiyan went on the expedition, he was put in charge of all the treasure, the orishas, the people, the land, the everything of Yoruba land on behalf of Oromiyan Alaafin. That is how Adimula Onirisha came to be. History. You can pen that down. Let us continue. So, today, the name Adimu has since been adopted as the agnomen and the term Owoni as the title of the kings, or more properly, the high priest of Ife to this day. The duties of the office being not local or tribal, but national. Yeah? According to another account, after the death of Okambi, Oromiyan, having succeeded and assumed the command, emigrated to Oko, where he reigned and where he died. and the seat of government was removed thence in the reign of Shango to Oyokoro, that is the aforesaid ancient city of Oyo. Now, Oromiyo may have actually died at Oko, but his grave with an obelisk over it is certainly shown at Ile-Ife to this day. It is a custom among the Yorubas, a custom observed to this day, to pare the nail, right? The nails and shave the head of anyone who dies at a considerable distance from the place where they would have him buried. These relics are taken to the place of interment and there decently buried. The funeral obscures being scrupulously observed as if the corpse itself were buried there. Right. Hence, although, as we have on probable grounds assumed, Oromiyo may have died at Oko, and the art of embalming lost or unknown Israeli could thus have been taken to Ile-Ife, where to this day he is supposed to have been buried. A more romantic account of his death, however, will be given in part 2 of this history. As the Yorubas worship the dead and have the belief that prayers offered at the grave of deceased ancestors are potent to procure temporal blessings, all succeeding Yoruba kings on their ascension and before coronation are expected to send to perform acts of worship at the grave of Oduduwa and to receive the benediction of the priests. The sword of justice known as Ida Oromiyo's sword, is to be brought from Ile-Ife and ceremoniously placed in their hands. Without this being done, the king has no authority whatever to order an execution. Oromiyo descendants in process of time were divided into 4 distinct families known by their distinctive dialects and forming the 4 provinces of Yoruba proper: the Ekun Otun, the Ekun Osi, the right and left, that is the eastern and western provinces, are the towns lying the east and west of the city of Oyo. So, number 1, the Ekun Otun or western province included all the towns along the right bank of River Ogun down to Iberekodo, Igana being the chief town. The other important towns are Shaki, Okeho, Iseyin, Iwawun, Erua, Iberekodo, and so on. In this province, 2 distinct dialects are spoken. The people inhabiting these outermost borders are known as Ibarapas and are distinguished by a nasal twang in their speech. The second are the Ekun or metropolitan province, comprised all the towns east of Oyo, including Kiisi and Igbowo in the north, Ikoyi being the chief town. Other important towns are Ilorin, Irawo, Iwere, Ogbomosho, and so on, including the Igbonas in the utmost limit eastwards, and the Igbonas as far as Oro. The Igbonas are distinguished by peculiar dialects of their own. The Ekun or yours are regarded as speaking the purest Yoruba. The ancient city of Oyo also lies in this province. Then the third part of Yoruba land, the Ibolo province, lies to the southeast of the Ekun. towns, the Ekun towns as far down as Ede, Iresa, being the chief town. The other important towns are Ofa, Oyon, Okuku, Ikirun, Oshogbo, Ido, Ilobu, Ejigbo, Ede. The Epos, the fourth part and fourth side of the core Yoruba land, the Epos, are the towns lying to the south and the southwest of Oyo, the chief town, of which is Idode. Other important towns in these divisions are Masifa, Ife-Odon, Ara, Iwo, Ilora, Akinmorin, Fiditi, Awe, Agoja. They are called Epos. Epos. That is weeds, because they were then in the remotest parts of the kingdom, rude and uncouth in manners, very deceitful and far from being as loyal as other tribes. So they were termed Epos. The Owus were usually reckoned amongst them, but they are rather a distinct tribe of Yoruba, although now domiciled amongst the Egbas. Great changes have been effected in these divisions by means of the revolutionary wars that altered the face of the country about the early part of the early part of the 9th or 19th century, rather. In the Ekun districts, Igana has lost its importance and its place taken by Iseyin. In the Ekun Osi, Ikoyi, the chief town, has been destroyed by Ilorin, and Ilorin itself brought under foreign allegiance by the Fulanis. The city of Oyo now lies in ruins, its name and position being transferred to Agoja in the Ekpo district. In the Ibolo district, Iresa has ceased to exist, being absorbed by Ilorin, and its place taken by Ofa, which in its turn was partially destroyed by the Ilorins in 1887, with several other towns in this district. Modakeke, a large and growing town, peopled by Oyos of the Ekun Osi, has sprung up in the Ife district, just beyond the borders of the Ibolos. Owu has been destroyed, never more to be rebuilt. The Epo district now includes Ibadan, Ijaye, and other towns formerly belonging to the Baguras. Idode has ceased to be the chief town. That position now properly belonged to Iwo, being a royal city. But Ibadan, which was originally an Egba village, then the military station of the Confederate Army, which destroyed the city of Owu and the Egba villages, and afterward a settled Oyo town, as by means of its military force assumed the lead not only over the Epo district, but also over a large area of the Yoruba country as well. It has a mixed population, including every tribe of the Yorubas. Ijaye, formerly an Egba town, became peopled by Oyos, chiefly from the Ekun-Osi, Ikoyi districts. All this including hundreds of important towns within the area are peopled by Yorubas proper, or Oyos as they are generally called, and constitute the more important portion of Yoruba proper. The Egbas, who were the most part offshoots of this, and formerly living in hamlets and villages independently of one another, have, through the exigencies of these wars, collected themselves from 153 hamlets or townships to form one town, Abeokuta. A further account of this will be given in its place. All these are reckoned as descendants of Oromiyan. By the advent also of the white men from the coast, the center of light and civilization has moved to the south, so that the Ekpos may soon cease to be weeds of the country, as they may receive the inspiration of civilization from the south instead from the north. As hitherto. Chapter 1, conclusive. So that's where we're going to drop it tonight. And some other time when I'm going to go on to chapter 2. Chapter 2 of this, of our history, it has to do with the origin of tribes. How did we emerge? You have known about the language. You have read about our grammars, our numerical stuff. There are many, many things. Signs, like the tribes. Where did we come from? How did we differentiate and know ourselves back in the days? Even though there were no record of writing all these then, but how did we keep the tradition and all that? So you see, we have a tribal mark. Some of you have actually had that, right? Or I've got mark, but my own is not tribal. This one is the mark they gave to me at Kobomoje in Ibadan. They said I was a sickly child. So a sickly child, and they didn't want me to die. So that's why they gave me all these marks. If you see them on my face, they are not tribal or what have you. They are marks given to me to still be alive. And I think it worked because I'm still here. Because they said that I was to die, but I didn't die. Kobomoje, for those of you who know Kobomoje in Ibadan. Or in Yoruba land, when you see marks on people's faces, they are not just marks, they are not punishment. Don't feel sorry or anything for them. They are beauty to behold, because they are identities of who they are from the word go. Now, listen to this. For Oyo, in Oyo, we have, we have Abaja, we have Pele, we have all these Abaja. They are in different numbers. So we have 4, we have 3, Pele 3. You have Gombo, a thick one. You have Keke, which is a Keke or Gombo. Owu, those ones, their own tribal mark is called Abaja Owu. Abaja or Keke Owu. So you have Egba, they have their marks too. We have Ife, mark too. We have Ijebu tribal mark day. Ijesha tribal mark day. Igbomino, Yagba, Efon, and everybody, Ondo. We have all that. So I am going to speak more on them and all those expeditions and all that. That makes us a great people. Thanks for joining me. And thanks for listening. No matter how, I don't know how good or how horrible the reading is, I just had to, for the sake of every one of the young people who have been, spending much time to get to know who we are and why people like us are never going to settle for less. Where the likes of Tinubu and gang will continue to ride the rough shot on us, taking advantage of sharing the same tribe and all that with us, even if they don't give a damn. So at some point, we will reincarnate exactly what our own forebearers did, to survive. Thank you, and I'm going to see you some other time. This time around, you can still share the broadcast if you haven't. Subscribe if you haven't. And I'll see you on another day when I have a violence packaged on Nigeria. Good night from here.
Maiyegun làwa mọ̀ làmọ̀ tó dòdòdò.
Maiyegun diary, Maiyegun number 1.
Maiyegun làwa mọ̀ láwọn tó jódodo.
Maiyegun diary Nayibi number one.
Maiyegun ti dé o ọ̀rẹ́ ará ìlú.
Maiyegun diary Nayibi number one.
Lórí Facebook lórí YouTube.
Maiyegun diary Nayibi number one.
Gbogbo bó ṣe ń lọ ni Maiyegun já wa sí.
Maiyegun diary Nayibi number one.
Àṣírí ọ̀jẹ̀lú kì í bò níbẹ̀ o.
Maiyegun diary Nayibi number one.
Bó bá ṣe eré àní Maiyegun máa wí.
Maiyegun diary Nayibi number one.
Ó sì tún ṣe eré wàá gbọ́ níbẹ̀ o.
Maiyegun diary Nayibi number one.
Maiyegun diary Politico.
Maiyegun diary Nayibi number one.
Godfatherism kò sí lọ́rọ̀ Maiyegun.
Maiyegun diary Nayibi number one.
Ẹ farabalẹ̀ sẹ́ o kẹgọ́rọ̀ lẹ́nu o.
Maiyegun diary Nayibi number one.
Àní Maiyegun làwa mọ̀ tó dódòdó.
Maiyegun diary Nayibi number one.
Àní ẹ̀sùn ràkì.
Maiyegun ti dé. Maiyegun ti dé.
Ọ̀jẹ̀lú ẹ̀sùn ràkì.
Maiyegun ti dé.
Àní ẹ̀sùn ràkì.
Maiyegun ti dé.
Lórí Facebook.
Maiyegun ti dé.
Àní ẹ̀sùn ràkì.
Maiyegun ti dé.
Lórí YouTube.
Maiyegun ti dé.
Àní ẹ̀sùn ràkì.
Maiyegun ti dé.
Bọ́ bàbá gbé wúrẹ́.
Maiyegun máa wí.
Àní ẹ̀sùn ràkì.
Maiyegun ti dé.
Ijó ìgbádìyẹ.
Maiyegun máa wí.
Àní ẹ̀sùn ràkì.
Maiyegun ti dé.
Prẹ̀sìdó bá rúfin o.
Maiyegun máa wí.
Àní ẹ̀sùn ràkì.
Maiyegun ti dé.
Bí gómìnà kówó jẹ.
Maiyegun máa wí.
Àní ẹ̀sùn ràkì.
Maiyegun ti dé.
Ọlọ́pàá tí ń gba rìbá.
Maiyegun máa wí.
Àní ẹ̀sùn ràkì.
Maiyegun ti dé.
Aṣòfin tí ń rúfin o.
Maiyegun máa wí.
Àní ẹ̀sùn ràkì.
Maiyegun ti dé.
Òpùrọ́ olóṣèlú.
Maiyegun máa wí.
Àní ẹ̀sùn ràkì.
Maiyegun ti dé.
Ọ̀jẹ̀lú ẹ̀sùn ràkì.
Maiyegun ti dé.
Àní ẹ̀sùn ràkì.
Maiyegun ti dé.
Maiyegun ti dé. Gbogbo ọ̀jẹ̀lú ẹ̀sùn ràkì. Maiyegun ti dé. Gbogbo ọ̀jẹ̀lú ẹ̀sùn ràkì. Ṣùgbọ́n ní bá ti ṣe èyí tó yẹ kí wọ́n ṣe, ọmọ bá dèrò ní fi wọ́n níran o.
Maiyegun ti dé. Gbogbo ọ̀jẹ̀lú ẹ̀sùn ràkì. Maiyegun ti dé. Gbogbo ọ̀jẹ̀lú ẹ̀sùn ràkì. Ṣùgbọ́n ní bá ti ṣe èyí tó yẹ kí wọ́n ṣe, ọmọ bá dẹ̀rọ̀ ò ní fi wọ́n níran.
Wọ́n fowó bẹ́ẹ̀ o.